welcome back to another episode of Sisterly. You're here with Rebecca and Olivia as per usual. We are so excited to be back for another episode. Sadly, we are not together for this episode like we were last week, but honestly, it feels more normal for me.
I know, it was very weird to actually record together in person because I'm used to staring at you in my laptop, and
Yeah,
it was strange.
it
It was
was a little
nice, but it
strange.
was
Yeah, it
strange.
was just like not the norm for us. Also, I feel like the audio quality wasn't as good. Like we've just
Yeah, because
gotten
we were
so
sharing our
used.
mic.
Yeah, we're just so used to like our own setup. But anyhow, we're back. We saw each other yesterday, but I sadly had to fly back home to San Francisco after a weekend home in Connecticut with our family,
Which
which
was very nice.
was
We
very
had
nice.
a very yummy brunch with family. We played a lot of board games with our brothers,
Hmm.
which was fun. I won a game of Catan. It was very exciting.
I lost 2 games of Catan. That was upsetting.
What else do we do? Our 16-year-old brother is learning how to drive, so we got to take him around in the car and like give him instruction on driving. That was pretty fun, and the first time I've ever had to do something like that.
Yeah, I finally like understand what parents say when they're like, it's terrifying teaching your kids how to drive. Like I
Yeah.
finally got that. I was like,
Yeah.
why was it so scary for you? But like now I kind of get, not that I don't have every confidence in Will's ability to drive,
And he was doing a
but
good job, but I was also
yeah.
just like, "Oh, wow, like, he's controlling a vehicle on the road right now, and, like, what if he
Yeah.
just, like,
What if he
messes
just like
up?"
crashes? What if he just
Right.
like hits the biker? Like, what am
Right,
I
I'm like, "What
gonna
if he turns
do?
way too fast and we just, like, crash into a wall?" Like,
Yeah, it just all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm in a car with someone who doesn't know how to drive. Like he's
yeah.
doing it, but like he's learning. So I finally understood. I was like, okay, this actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But he was doing pretty well. We started off in the parking lot. We did, some nice easygoing loops around. We practiced some parking and then we hit the road.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was good. And it's like a fun bonding experience, you
Yeah, it
know.
is. It is. It was just, it made me think of myself when I was 16 and like the things
Hmm.
that I worried about when I was learning to drive. And it was also funny to watch him like do some of the same things I know that I did when I was learning how to drive and like what things like didn't click for me and to see that be like sort of the same. I was like, oh wow, yeah, like I totally remember feeling like that.
I feel like we're kind of going to talk about this today a little bit with our topic, but we could also get into it in another episode one day. But I actually really love having younger brothers that are way younger than us because it allows us to experience these moments with our siblings that most siblings don't get to experience.
Yeah. Or if
And
you're too
yeah,
close in age, you might not like care about it as much. You're just kind of like
totally.
whatever. But for us, it's like very enjoyable to do things with them and to watch them like achieve milestones and to like attend their events or recitals or whatever it is because like
Yeah.
we have enough space between us that it feels like fun for us to see them do those things. Whereas if you're like only a year or two apart, it's like not that exciting.
Yeah, it's this weird feeling of being in between their sibling and their parent.
Yeah.
Like, not
It's like a
of this, like
sibling, but like maybe an aunt or a cousin as
yeah.
well.
Not that we, like, have the role of being their parents, obviously. They have parents for that, but just this feeling of, like, pride and I don't know, there's just, like, these different emotions I think that come up, like, over me when it comes to them of just, like, wanting them to succeed in a way that was, like, different than when we were kids. Obviously, I wanted you to succeed, but, like, I didn't think about it. I wasn't
Right, because we were just, like, going through things at the same time. Even though we have an
yeah,
age gap, it wasn't that big, so it felt like we were just yeah, so close in age, but for them, it feels like we really get to, like, watch them grow up and have a little bit of perspective while we do it. Like, it's not like we've just finished it. Like, I wasn't just 12 or 16 years old, but I also am not so far away from it that I can really remember what that was like.
totally. So I feel like driving Will, like, around or him driving us around, it was just a cool thing to experience. And then, it's also cool sometimes that they'll come to us to talk about things that they're going through that, I mean, not that they like divulge their whole lives because they're still like teenage boys. So they don't,
Yeah.
a lot of their things that they say are just grunts. But when
Yeah,
they
one
do,
word non-answers.
yeah, when they do actually speak to us in sentences, like it's just cool that they can tell us things. And I think they know we actually care about it. Whereas we might not have if we were closer in age. I don't know, or maybe we would have.
Right. I just think it's possible that if we had all been closer in age, like it would have taken us longer until we were older to like fully appreciate each other,
Yeah,
maybe. And I feel like because we have the age gap, it's like, no, we fully appreciate them now. And like every time we come home, they're so excited that we're home. They're not
yeah,
like, oh, whatever about us. Like it's an exciting thing for them.
totally. So, anywho, we're gonna that kind of is in line with our topic today, which is all about
Divorce, babe.
divorce,
Divorce.
divorce, babe, divorce. Um, yeah. So, anywho, but before we get into that, more things to go over. The Oscars were last night. Now,
I did
Rebecca and
not
I,
actually
yeah, we
watch.
didn't watch the Oscars. Here's
Normally
the
I
thing.
do, but I did not.
Here's the thing, though. No one even really needs to watch the Oscars to know what happened.
Well, yeah, Twitter tells you everything you need
Yeah.
to know.
And I also mainly just like the Oscars to kind of know what movies might be worth watching
And I like seeing people's
and the
outfits.
fashion. Yeah. Which I just see
Mindy
that on Instagram.
Kaling looked
Okay.
amazing. Zendaya, we knew she was gonna slay it, and she did.
Also, I saw online that Zendaya did her own makeup and it looked phenomenal. So, a woman of
Remains
many
an
talents.
icon.
I didn't like Kristen Stewart's outfit.
The shorts.
Yeah, didn't like it. I'm like, girl, you're nominated for Best Actress. If you want to wear a suit or pants, you totally should, but don't wear shorts.
Yeah. I did feel like it was very her, but I also feel like, yeah, like a pantsuit would have also
Yeah, like she shouldn't have
worked.
to wear a dress if she doesn't want to wear a dress. Like, I don't believe in like women need to wear dresses, men need to wear suits, like, obviously. But I don't know, the
But like a little bit
shorts.
more formal. It felt like a little bit more
Yeah,
casual.
they were also like short shorts.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt a little
What
like,
was she there for? Her movie about Princess Diana?
yeah, Spencer, which
So
apparently
I haven't
is
seen
she
that.
did a very good job. I
Yeah, I
haven't seen
heard
it
it's
either.
really good. I haven't this year I haven't seen like any of the movies that were nominated, and like normally I'm a little bit better, but
I saw
there are
Belfast.
well, I saw it was Dune was nominated for
Dune.
some things. I saw Dune.
Dune was nominated for Best Picture, which I thought was stupid, but whatever.
Yeah. I was glad it won like best like cinematography or
Yeah,
whatever. I was
totally.
like,
That makes
that
sense.
makes sense, but
I don't know.
best film, I don't know
I
about
watched
that.
Dune and I was like, wait, the movie's ending right now? I feel like we didn't even have a plot. But apparently I'm the only one who thinks that. So also, I don't know. I think I always have the opposite takes on movies as everyone else. I thought Batman, horrible movie. Everyone else loved it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it. Still don't know if I will. But yeah, I heard some people said they liked it, but I've heard other people were like, meh.
So what
But
do
yeah,
I know?
I didn't see King Richard. I haven't seen West Side Story, which I really want to see because I love watching musicals. Um, but yeah, I'm behind. But anyway, Oscars drama
Mm,
because Chris Rock got up there and presented, and he made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith having a shaved head, and she has, for context, alopecia, which causes hair loss, and he like made a comment about her shaved head and like compared her to like GI Jane. And then it was like a very bizarre moment because like he made this joke, which was like a joke in poor taste.
mhm.
And then Jada Pinkett Smith just kind of like rolled her eyes. Like she didn't look like enraged. She just kind of looked like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, like
And
almost like low blow, but whatever.
yeah, she was just kind of like, whatever. And then the camera's on both her and Will is laughing. But then it pans back to Chris Rock and he says something like, that was a good one or whatever, and then like keeps going, and then the camera shows that Will Smith like gets up, goes on stage and slaps Chris Rock across the face, and then he exits and Chris Rock is like, whoa, can't believe that just happened. And then Will Smith says like, to keep my wife's name out of your mouth. And it was all very dramatic, and it was confusing because I watched the clip a few times because it really was weird to see like Will's face seemed fine, and then all of a sudden he's on stage hitting him. So it was like a weird what
Yeah,
happened
I
in
don't know
like
what
2
happened in
seconds.
those 5 seconds that the camera was not on his face.
Yeah.
I feel like I have so many thoughts on this. Mainly my number one thought is the fact that people care so much is ridiculous. I don't know. Like, the internet has made this a giant debate on whether or not like we should basically cancel Will Smith for
Right.
assaulting Chris Rock, and I'm like,
I feel like the bigger issue is that like a joke in poor taste was made about a woman and about her medical condition. And then, like, she is somehow not even the center of this anymore. It's
Yeah.
about, like, her husband who, like, did this act, like, quote, "in her name" or whatever, or, like, quote, "on her behalf," even though she didn't ask for that. And it's also about, like, Chris Rock and his joke, and I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like it's weird that it's, like, about the 2 of them and, like, she's, like, somehow, like, not even in it anymore, even though, like, she's the one who
Yeah.
should be offended, I feel like, on both counts. And, like, there's some people who are just, like, really enraged about, like, Will Smith's actions and being like, violence is, like, never the answer, like, violence isn't love or whatever. And, like, I feel like going into this stuff about, like, domestic abuse, which is just, like, a take. And I just
It is a take.
I feel like there's also a lot of debate about, like, Chris Rock, like, how dare he, like, insult her medical condition, like, what are these low blows, whatever. And I just, like, I see both perspectives. I just feel like the
Yeah.
whole thing was just a
I
mess,
think
and I
Chris Rock shouldn't have said it. Once again, like, why do we have to comment on people's appearances?
right, especially for something that's like, it's like, let's just first of all stop insulting women and stop insulting women's appearances, but also for something that's, like, a condition
Yeah.
that
I'm
we
sure
don't
he
know her
didn't know that.
stance.
I'm
No,
sure
but
he
she's
didn't know.
talked about it publicly, like, she
Oh,
has
okay.
talked about it, like, people know she has that. I mean,
Then
maybe he
that's
doesn't know, it's possible, but the producers
they
for
should have known.
sure
Yeah, they should have checked
know
that.
that. They should know that, and I just feel like that is just such poor taste because we also, like, we don't know her stance on it, like, maybe she's really self-conscious about it, or maybe it's,
Totally.
like, a
Just
real
stop
bummer for
making
her.
comments about women's bodies. Stop making comments about anyone's body, but, like, especially women, especially Black women, like, stop
Right.
doing it. Um, so, yeah,
Yeah.
I think I thought it was in poor taste. Of course, I'm the type of person that's like, "No, I don't think the answer was for Will Smith to go on stage
No,
and slap Chris Rock across the face."
obviously not.
But
Like,
I'm
I
also like, people need to calm down.
right. I feel like people are, like, overacting a tad, but on the other hand, I'm like, I definitely don't think he should have gotten up there
No.
and done that. Like, if he would, like, he has every right to be, like, annoyed or mad or offended on his wife's behalf, and I feel like totally would have been reasonable for him to have an unhappy look on his face, maybe for him to even heckle him from the crowd a bit and be like mad about it and say something, or to go
Yeah.
find him after, or to say something in a speech about, like, how that was, like, totally uncalled for. But it just felt like not the reaction that, like, should have gone down. And I
Yeah.
also just feel like, wow, it really sucks that that happened because, like, he later went on to win the Oscar for Best Actor in a Film, and I feel like that, I'm sure, really
Oh,
overshadowed his
totally. Well,
evening and
now
his experience, and I'm like, "That sucks for you and for everyone else that that's what
yeah. Now
happened."
people are, like, saying that they're investigating it and, like, might take his Oscar away because of it, and I'm just
Oh
like,
gosh.
there's so many bigger issues in the world. I'm just like, I there's so many bigger issues in the world, but I also think too, I think there's a little bit more context to maybe where Will Smith's rage came from, and I think it's because people also talk very poorly about Jada Pinkett Smith in the media because it's been known that they have an open marriage and she
Mhm.
dated someone else for a while,
Yeah.
and people were making comments about, like, she's embarrassed Will Smith so many times, there's only so much a man can take, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, "That's ridiculous." Like,
Yeah.
people should not be commenting on other people's marriages, it's
Especially, like,
absolutely
if they made that
nobody's
choice, like,
business.
that's like, they can do them.
Right, like, she's not embarrassing him, like, clearly they have a relationship in which they've agreed upon this, like, or even if
Right.
they didn't, it's
Presumably,
no
he can
one's
also do whatever he wants, and, like, he is, I
right.
assume, so
So it's just once again, I wonder if maybe some of his rage came from, like, why are we talking about my wife in a negative way again?
yeah.
When this has happened so many times. Once again, like, no one should get up and just hit someone else because they don't like what they said. I feel like that's obvious. Maybe it isn't obvious to some people. To me, I'm like,
Right.
yeah, that's obviously he should not have done that. But I think people are like taking this to such an extreme level where I'm like, okay, he slapped him across the face. He shouldn't have done that. That was bad.
Yeah, like,
Can we move on?
yeah, like, don't condone that in any way. Obviously, that's, like, a super immature way to react to that and, like, wasn't helpful, and, like, we don't even know how Jada Pinkett Smith feels about any of this. Like,
Right.
maybe she's also, like, deeply embarrassed that that was the aftermath, and who knows, but I'm just like, "Wow, what a mess."
Yeah, a true disaster. But anywho, people love drama, so
Yeah.
the Oscars are like, we're saved. Now people are gonna wanna watch.
I know that was the only thing I heard about. Like, I didn't watch, and that was the only thing I heard about,
Yep.
so
I honestly feel a little bad for other people whose like wins were overshadowed.
yeah. I'm like, "Oh, it's probably a bummer if you were, like, really excited and it starts off
Yeah.
on a very weird note."
Yep. Anywho, another thing that happened this weekend was I watched all of Bridgerton season 2. I'm not going to talk about it too much because most people haven't watched it, including Rebecca, but it was
True.
really good. I loved it so much. It gave me a lot of Pride and Prejudice vibes, Keira
Oh,
Knightley
good.
version, of course.
I'm glad to hear that.
I
Did you
feel like
like it more or about the same as season 1?
I was just going to say that, and I honestly don't feel like I can say because I watched season 1 so long ago.
Yeah.
Like, part of me is like, "Oh, I liked it more," but I remember loving it so much. So, they were very different. I felt like the vibe of it was very like, it was similar but different, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm excited to watch it.
yeah, this one was way more, like, romance-based, which I know sounds silly because the first season was romance-based, but, like, this felt more traditional, like, Pride and Prejudice romance vibes,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Like, less about, like, sex and more about, like, love and romance.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, and I really liked it. I thought it was amazing. I thought all the actors were amazing. I loved the storylines. The only thing I don't like is that I finished watching it because I wanna watch so much more.
Did they still do, like, instrumental versions of
Oh,
pop
yeah.
songs? Love
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. And once again, the fashion is so fun because it's, like, an interpretation of what the actual fashion was of that time period.
Yeah.
I feel like some people get so heated. They're like,
It's
"This
not
is not
historically accurate.
historically accurate," and I'm like,
It's like, "Guys, it's a
"Okay,
Shonda show, like,
yeah,
it's for
it's a TV
funsies,
show,
like, it's
everyone
not a
can
period
relax."
piece." Like
But I think that's what makes it so fun. I mean, once again, if we are being historically accurate, everyone in this show would be white, and, like, I love one of my favorite parts about the show is that it's not just all white people,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they
yeah.
incorporate different cultures. And this part was fun too because the main characters, the 2 main women, are Indian, and they incorporate a lot of Indian culture. Maybe not maybe a lot is an exaggeration. I mean, it's still a show about, like, London, but they incorporate Indian culture into the show, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah,
So,
that's very cool.
um,
Oh, I'm so excited to watch. I'm so bummed I haven't had, like, the time to watch it, but at some point this week it's happening.
yeah, I can't wait for you to watch. Ugh, I honestly am like, "Should I just watch it again?" No.
Probably. When I
Ugh.
watched the first one, I, like, a month later watched the first season again.
I feel like I
So
should watch the first season again and then watch this one
yeah, you should.
again
You should
after
watch the
it.
first one again.
Just so good. But anywho, that's a little roundup of our weekend and what's new with us
Yo,
gals.
covered
Um,
a lot of ground there.
yeah, to cover a lot of ground. There's a lot to catch up on. But now we want to get into our topic for today, which we already said. Divorce, babe. Of course. Um, for those of you who don't know, which I'm sure a lot of you do, because we mention it a lot, Rebecca and I are children of divorce.
Such a dramatic way to say that. Our parents divorced
They divorced.
when I was
When
7 and when Olivia was 3,
yes. And I make light of it because it happened so long ago, but
and it's just, like, a
obviously
part of our
it's
lives.
just a part of our
It's just,
lives.
like, it is what it is.
It is, yeah. It'd be like that sometimes. And obviously like don't want to make light of it as a topic because I think it holds a lot of emotions for our parents, for other people who were divorced, for other children of divorce. I think for Rebecca and I, it's just like a piece of our lives. It's like not the whole thing, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And I feel like we go back and forth. Like, I mean, sometimes there's, like, things that are very serious, and then other
yeah.
times we just, like, make jokes because it's just how we deal with things, and also because it's just, like you said, it's just been a part of our lives for so long that we're kinda like, it'd be like that
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. Like, and I also think at the end of the day, Rebecca and I are glad things happened the way that they did.
Yeah.
Um, for
Like, I think it
multitude
worked
of
out for
reasons.
the best.
Yeah. So, but those are just our thoughts and feelings. Not everyone, everyone's entitled to their own thoughts and feelings. But, um, yeah, so our parents got divorced when we were really young, and we're not gonna get too much into the specifics of it because it's, like, not our business to share, like,
Mhm.
the specifics of our parents' divorces, but we will just say that, like, it was like, there was tension between our parents, like, we did a lot of things separately. I think you see a lot of times on TV and, like, you hear a lot about like, parents that maybe raised their families kind of, like, together even though they were divorced. That wasn't our situation, like, things were pretty
Yeah, I
split.
feel like it's, like, maybe more common these days for people to be like, "Oh, yeah, like, we just sort of have a more flexible schedule, or we kind of, like, do things together," or, like, to use the term co-parenting or whatever, and I just feel like our experience was just, like, we did things separately. It wasn't like
Yeah,
we, like, got together to do things even though they had gotten divorced, so just, like, our perspective is that, like, things were separate.
yeah, and, like, people have very different experiences, I think, all across the board, so just one perspective, but we kinda wanted to talk about, like, the pros and cons, which, like, feels like such a simple version of talking about, like, a whole lifetime's worth of experiences. Be like, "Here are the pros and here are the cons." But just, like, give our listeners a little bit more background as to who we are, why we are the way that we are, and also to anyone else who's been through this, knows someone who's been through this.
Or is, like,
Um
currently going through it. I feel like it's useful to know that there's, like, there are things that are hard, and if you're struggling with them, like, it's totally fair and relatable and understandable, and there's also, like, some good things that can come out of it that you might not be aware of, and, those are good to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people talk about divorce, they think it's, like, super black and white. It's either like, "Oh, they got divorced, but, like, everything's fine, like, everyone's happy," and or, they got divorced and everything's a disaster, and I think there's a lot of in-betweens, and there were, like, a lot of
Mhm.
in-betweens throughout our life. I think just to start it off, obviously, when 2 people get divorced, it's super stressful.
Yeah.
So, I think it was hard on our parents, and I think that was hard to watch, of course. Um, I think it was also hard for us because you then don't get to be with both of your parents all the time.
Mhm. And
Um,
yeah, it's very weird to go from, like, always having your, like, unit together to not being with both of your parents at the same time ever or most of the time, and then also just feeling like you're missing one of your parents when you're not with them. And then also taking into account that, like, I'm sure as a parent, it's, like, devastating to have children and then not be with your children all of the time, and
yeah,
to feel like you're missing out on moments with them because they're not with you for a certain portion of time.
totally. Um, and I think too, sometimes it just felt like we were always women on the move.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when you have to go between like, I mean, fortunately, for a lot of the time when we were younger, our parents didn't live too far apart, but for part of it, they did live a little bit further, and it's like you have to transport all of your stuff back and forth, and you also have to spend time in the car or train or however you have to get between your parents' homes, and that's just, like, time that you lose sort of
Yeah, you
doing that
kinda had
shuffle.
yeah, you had to, like, pack up your life every once in a while into, like, a little suitcase for the weekend, and I felt like that sometimes was hard. I think also it meant not to be, like, too dramatic, but, like, there were a lot of goodbyes. Like, we said goodbye to people a lot of the time, and
Mhm.
that might seem like not that big of a deal, but it was hard, like, saying goodbye to one of your parents, like, a lot of the time and, being like, "Okay, see you in a couple weeks," like, that was hard, and so I feel like that and also the fact that we're Irish made me, like, a big fan of the Irish goodbye. Like, I don't love a drawn out goodbye. I love being the one who,
Does
like
the leaving?
yeah, does the leaving, or, like, has something else to do after I leave, if that makes sense. because I don't like them, and I think just because they became, like, a little too
I know I like them to be
common.
quick as well. I'm like, "Let's goodbye, love you." Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah, totally. And I think also it felt hard too just feeling, like, a little unsettled and, like, where you were, if that makes sense. I mean, this is absolutely no comparison to people who actually faced, like, housing insecurity or anything like that, but just feeling like when we go visit our dad and our stepmom, like, "Oh, we're only here for 2 days." Like,
right.
not
So it's
really
like you
feeling
can't,
too
like it's not
comfortable.
like you unpack and you're kinda just like, "Oh, okay, like, I'm just gonna stay here now for a while." It's kinda like cram a lot into that time, and then you also, like, do the transport time, and it doesn't feel like you just, like, have everything where it is and just stay there.
Totally.
I think one of the hardest things about having divorced parents is around holidays.
Mhm.
So, I think one of the most difficult elements is not getting to spend every holiday. I mean, this is different for different people based on how their like custody schedule is when you're children. But we didn't get to spend every holiday with both parents. Sometimes it was just with one, and then a different holiday was just with the other. And so you always feel like you're missing something and missing out on an experience. And it's not only with your parent, but also with your parents' extended family. So it's like,
Mhm.
all of your grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, like friends or whatever that are associated with the sort of two halves of your parents means that you don't get to see them every time, and sometimes you feel like you miss out and you're like not there for something that everybody else is there for, or you feel bad if you're at one thing and you feel like you miss your other parent, or you're worried about what are they doing. And so I just remember like when I would see friends whose parents weren't divorced, I was like, wow, it must just be so nice for them to not have to worry about this on holidays, or not have to share it, or not have to feel like they're missing part of their family, or missing out on an experience, or feeling like they're just getting left out. Um,
Yeah, or even, like, now as adults, Rebecca and I spend a lot of time driving from holiday to holiday event.
yeah, because
Um,
now that we're older, we can decide how we want to spend our time. And so usually we choose to split holidays rather than just do only one and then only the other. A lot of times we just see everyone on one, but it just means less time with both
yeah.
halves of the family. So it is a lot of car time.
Yeah, and a lot of, like yeah, like, on Christmas Day, like, driving, 30 minutes in between houses, and, like, in the grand scheme of things, of course, that is not that big of a deal, but it's just, like, this idea that some of your time is kind of taken because you have to split things, and once again, there's, like, a lot of goodbyes. There's
Yeah,
also
exactly.
always disappointing people because you can't be in 2 places at once, and that's hard, um, because it's, like, as much as people want us to be there for, like, the full extent of the time, we also wish that we could not have to split things up.
Right. It's very hard to want to be in two places at once and feel like someone's always going to be slightly unhappy, or like even if they don't tell you that they're unhappy, you feel bad that you can't have it be exactly how they might want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then I think too, I think this was something that came up like more early on when our parents got divorced, less so now. I mean, like we mentioned, it's been a really long time, but just this kind of fear of like being replaced or being not I guess irrelevance kind of an aggressive word, but just not being as important because you're also, like, not there all the time.
Right. It's like, oh, well, will we become out of sight, out of mind? And if we're not there all of the time, what does that mean? And I think also becomes more complicated when, like, as we mentioned, we have brothers, and it's like they were with one of our parents all of the time and we weren't. And
Mhm.
it's like, what does that mean when it's like, oh, they get to be there all the time and we aren't, and they spend more time together than we do? Like, how do we feel about that? How will that make you feel about us if we're not around all the time?
Yeah, or even too, like, once again with our brothers, like, they're with each other all the time, like, are they gonna care about each other more than they care about us, or just feel like they're really siblings and like we aren't, just this feeling like you're not 100% involved in someone's life because you can't be there all the time, and wondering if they'll notice that absence that you're so afraid of.
So, a lot of tough things that come with divorce.
Yeah, we figured we'd just get those things out of the way.
Yeah. And I feel like there's obviously more to say about all of those things. And like there was obviously a very long journey to get from there to where we are now
Yeah.
and to where we are like, we have our ways. We have figured out our systems. We've figured
Yep.
out ways to deal with all of these things. And we've worked through so many issues and like challenges that have come up that I feel like we're like pretty well oiled machine at this point. But that took like decades.
Yeah.
um, so those are some of the things that I feel like came to our immediate thoughts when we were talking about like what are some of just the cons of
Yeah.
um divorce.
I feel like in between the pro and con is that having divorced parents definitely gives you a different outlook on relationships and marriage in general, like as a concept. And honestly, we probably could do a whole episode on this. So I don't know. I say that every episode. So every episode I'm like, oh, we could do a whole new episode on just this topic. It's probably very irritating for those of you listening. But what I mean by that is I feel like there are obviously stereotypes that having divorced parents makes you like relationship averse, and that was not my experience. Like, I don't feel like because our parents got divorced I was like, I don't believe in love. Like that never crossed my mind. I don't feel that way. I don't feel like that was the example or like the lesson our parents were trying to teach us at all. But I do think it gives like a simultaneously larger importance on marriage and also less importance. And that probably makes no sense. But what I mean by that is when I think about marriage, it's very important to me to focus on myself and know who I am and be really confident in my relationship before getting married. I've always just wanted to be older, to have had more life experience, all of that. But at the same time, I also don't have this belief that marriage is like the end all be all, if that makes sense.
Right, it's like it's not the only goal of a relationship, and it's not
Yeah.
like if you don't have that then you have nothing or something like that. I also feel like it gave me this perspective of just like I still think marriage is great and like really important and something that like I'm interested in doing. But I also think that having divorced parents and realizing that like things worked out for the best also made me realize that, you know, not that I foresee it for myself, but if I were ever to be in a situation where something was like really toxic or really awful, or I was completely miserable and it felt like there's truly no way to reconcile something, like to me it seems clear that like that divorce and choosing to do something different is a better option than staying in something that's like miserable for everyone. Not to say that you should like throw in the towel easy or that like you shouldn't take marriage seriously or make it a really big commitment. It's just I've seen other people's parents who didn't get divorced and I think should have. And
Yeah.
I think that like they would have been happier and their kids would have been happier if they had, because they just like don't like each other and like don't have any sort of familial relationship that like is sort of the whole point of the unit, and it feels like they're just doing it because they don't think that they can undo it. And I think they think that divorce means failure. And I just think that my take on it is kind of like that's obviously nobody's goal. Like nobody
Yeah.
wants that. But I actually think that there are worse outcomes than divorce.
I completely agree with that. I don't see divorce as failure. And I can understand how someone going through it feels like that's what's happening. But I think divorce is like a really difficult decision to make. And I think sometimes it can be a success if it means choosing a happier life for yourself. So yeah, I think that's like there's a lot that could go into that, but I think, we're lucky that by no means did the divorce of our parents mean that we're like, love isn't real, you know?
Yeah. No, I don't think it made
Um,
us like cynics.
no, no. And I also think too, it actually made me very appreciative that instead of prolonging something that wasn't going to work out for everyone, a decision was made to like end the relationship. I
Hmm.
think that that was what was right for everyone. And so glad that that happened. And then I think now we can move on to pros.
Yeah, because there's some unexpected side benefits of divorce. As we said, it's not the goal, but you make lemonade out of lemons. So,
Yeah. And I think also too, like things happen for a reason, which feels like cheesy to say, but like there are a lot of really good things that happened that we, get to experience because of this. First and foremost, you get double the presents. So I know we said that the holidays are tough because sometimes you've got to mosey around all over the place, but also you get way more presents. So I
the
always loved
small
that growing up.
joys.
Small joys. Always loved that growing up. A lot of times, and we've mentioned this in previous episodes, like our parents definitely celebrate the holidays like more. And I don't know if it's because they always wanted to make sure that we felt like we got celebrations, like a full family celebration, but like holidays are a bigger deal. I swear, if you're a child of divorce, like parents go big
Yeah.
because they feel bad.
Yeah, they feel
So,
guilty. And so you reap the benefits of that.
yeah, and I'm okay with it.
I think another benefit that you get is just having more understanding and empathy for complicated family situations or just for other people who don't have things that look like picture perfect or for sort of just like blended family dynamics. Like, I think you just realize like not everything is cookie cutter, and that also doesn't mean that something that's not cookie cutter is bad, and it just gives you a bit more acceptance, understanding of other people's family structures.
Totally. A family can look like a lot of things.
Mhm.
And we've even talked about this in previous episodes of like family can look like the ones that you're born into or the ones that you choose. And
Mhm.
I think that's another example of just a family that comes together and maybe and it's not even unconventional anymore, but
Right,
like
it's like highly normal at this point,
yeah, but
but
like maybe what you didn't think it was going to be.
yeah, exactly. And along those lines, like a benefit, I guess, of divorce is just like you get more people in your life. Like, if your family sort of branches, a lot of times it means that you get new people or like more people in your life that you get to love and get to know. And like, that's a good thing. Like, we got brothers out of it and like we
Yeah,
love them. They're great. So, you know, side benefits.
totally. And of course for a lot of people there are different circumstances where maybe that doesn't end up being a happy thing. I
Hmm.
think we got really lucky that in our situation, it kind of just meant like more people to love and more people to love us. And that's always been something that I've been super grateful for. Um, and, we've been really lucky to have a good relationship with our stepmom, a really good relationship with our brothers. Like, you know, we've been able to meet more people through the relationships that our parents formed outside, when they got divorced, and so I think that that's been really wonderful. And I wouldn't want that any other way, I'm really happy with the family that we have, and, um, yeah, I think we got sometimes I'm like, "Oh, we got lucky," and then also times I'm like, "No, we also made a lot of effort too." I mean, obviously the adults in our lives, like our stepmom and the other like family members that we made along the way, like made a lot of effort when we were kids to make us feel like we were all part of the family. And I think now too, we make a lot of effort. Like when our brothers were born, we knew that we wanted us to be like just as close as Rebecca and I were growing up. And so like we also make a conscious effort to make sure that they know that we are siblings and that we love them and that we're one big old happy family even when we are like pulling each other's hair out. So I think it's like takes a lot of work too.
Another sort of pro that we got from our parents getting divorced is just more experiences than we might have had otherwise. You know, when your parents get divorced, they often live in different places, and so that just means that you see more places, interact with more people. In our situation, we grew up in Connecticut, and for at least part, like in the early part of when our parents got divorced, my dad lived in New York City, and we would spend time there. And we had gone to New York, you know, before, and we did things in New York, like go to shows and whatnot. But it was also different to just sort of be there with someone who was living there and to just see things. And I just remember experiencing things in New York that I was like, oh, wow, like this is different than Connecticut, or like this is different. There are different people here than
Mhm.
the people I see at school. And there are just different, all sorts of different environments that I didn't have exposure to. And I thought it was very cool that we caught that exposure to a different area and different people when we were young.
Yeah. Another thing that we've mentioned in previous episodes is that as soon as our parents got divorced, Rebecca and I were put in therapy. And I've always been so grateful for that because, one, of course, I'm sure it helped us when we were little. And two, it opened that as like a resource or a tool for us to use throughout our lives. It's like we never really had a negative stigma about therapy. Like we were
No.
always comfortable going, always knew it was an option, and that was really great. And
Yeah,
also,
it never felt like you had to have something wrong with you to go. It was just like, oh, like
yeah,
this is just what we go do.
yeah, totally. Like we ask for help. Like
Yeah.
when challenging things happen, we use other resources, and I think that that's great. And I also think, like, finally, one of the reasons Rebecca and I are so close is because our parents did get divorced.
Hmm.
And, through all of the things that have happened in the past 20 years of that, Rebecca and I have been each
Threw it all
other's,
together.
yeah, we've been each other's go-to person like the entire time. And like a lot of people are like, how are you and your sister so close? And I think part of it was that like our parents helped to facilitate that. But I also think it was like when you're going through something like that was really hard at the time, like we used each other as like support.
Yeah.
And the only person who really ever knew what we were going through was the other one. So
Right. We were the only ones who were doing the exact same situation and were with each other all of the time.
yeah. And so I think that I don't know if that would have happened. Maybe it would have, but I don't know. Maybe we wouldn't have been as close, and I
Yeah,
definitely would not wanna change that,
me either.
just if we wanna be smushy about it, you know?
Yeah, so those are our sort of introductory pros and cons to divorce. And just sort of some like high level takeaways from I think our experience with it. And I think because of the time that's passed, we're able to like reflect on it in a way and just like have these thoughts that I'm sure were so different over the years at different times. But I think if you're going through it or have gone through it or are about to go through something like this, just know that things will work out okay. And there's things that you can do to work through it. And there might even be unexpected benefits that you don't realize at the time. So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Sisterly. We love chatting with you and we love hearing from you on social media. So if you're not following us on Instagram, please do. It's at sisterlypod, and we would love to get any messages from you or ideas of topics that you would like to hear about. And we'll catch you on the next one.